So just to introduce myself, my name's Bethany, and today we are here to talk about identifying, categorizing, and forecasting software spend in AppVentory. So I'm the product evangelist here at AppVentory. I've been with the company since the beginning of the year. I actually learned of the product back when I worked in practice last year, Digital Accountancy Show 2024. So I was very keen to join because this is a product that I was crying out for when I was in practice myself. In addition to my work here at AppVentory, I am also a digital transformation consultant. So I wear two hats. In my other role, I work with accountants and their clients to recommend and implement better technology. So definitely my passion is in the software space, and I absolutely adore the AppVentory product, and I'm really excited to walk you through some of its features today. All right, so in this webinar, I'm going to be demonstrating to you how AppVentory can help you to uncover all of your business's current tech spend and how to segment and understand exactly where that spend is coming from, how to manage and stay on top of all of your app spend, and then finally looking at forecasting tech spend into the future. So before we get into it, what is so important about tech spend, and why should you be getting a better handle on those costs? Well, globally, tech spend in business is set to reach 5.74 trillion US dollars in 2025, which is up 10% on last year. Now, it's no secret that software vendors tend to increase the cost of their system year on year. They usually implement annual price increases. But I did learn yesterday that the most recent software increases have been larger than usual. So definitely something to stay on top of. And after wages and payroll, tech is actually a business's biggest expense, and you're tracking your payroll spend and your staff acquisition costs. So why not your technology spend? If you can really and truly understand what makes up those kind of figures on your P&L with regards to software spend, then this will give you the insights you need to make that all a little bit leaner and inevitably impact your bottom line in a positive way. So first of all, we're going to be looking at identifying your tech spend. We're going in very kind of rudimentary here. Now, most businesses that I speak to in my AppVentory role, they're just currently identifying their tech spend using a software subscriptions nominal account. And they typically have an accounting system in place for that. So today I wanted to take a look at how you might currently be identifying and categorizing and forecasting tech spend versus what that would look like within AppVentory. So you can see for yourselves the difference in the data that you have access to and how much more accessible that type of data is. So the first thing I want to do is hop into Xero. Now, I understand you may not be using Xero for your business, but I do suspect that it's a product you're all pretty comfortable with and are aware of. And it is a great a bookkeeping and accounting software that will give you a little bit of insight into your tech spend. So most businesses that I speak to will revert to their profit and loss report. Now, this is a demo account in Xero, so I believe we have a subscriptions ledger in here. We do. So when I very first speak to a business about what their tech spend is, they will say, well, what's the point in AppVentory? I can see that on my P&L. So this demo business here can see that for their year to date, their software spend is £1,234. But that doesn't tell you where that spend is coming from. That is just a figure that tells you kind of what's gone in and out of the account, what the balance is, but it doesn't really tell you the origins of that spend or really any context at all. And you might say in a great system like Xero, you can click into that spend and see where it is coming from. So in this demo account, we have 3 transactions for the total year to date. Most businesses will have 10 times, if not 50 times, this amount of transactions going through this ledger. But this is a demo account. This is what we have to work with. So we're still talking here about identifying tech spend. We've got a total figure on that, the 1,234 balance on the account. I can see the invoices, the payments that make up this balance, and any refunds, credits, etc. as well. Okay, so there is like an ability to drill down into that tech spend, but this doesn't allow you to look at any patterns or why this spend occurred. Okay, I could, this is the P&L essentially becoming what is called the account transactions report in Xero. There is the option to export all of the transactions and do kind of a deeper dive that way, but that would be very manual. But it does tell us, I guess, what the total tech spend is for year to date. Now, if I hop over to AppVentory, if you've never seen it before, I'm in the business version here. So there's a practice version for advisors and then a business version for you to use in your practice if you're an accountant, or in your business if you're not. Now, when you set up AppVentory, there are 2 things to set up. There is connecting with your identity provider to pull through your users and the apps that they're using. But before doing that, you'll want to connect to your spend data. So if I show you my integrations page, the ability to connect to Xero, QuickBooks, FreshBooks, etc. are in here. If there are any accounting systems you are currently using that's not on this list, please do let us know. We are always working on expanding this list. But there is the ability to import your transactions manually, but we don't want that. This is all about automating. So this demo account of AppVentory would assume that we've connected to a Xero. Well, let's assume we've connected to this Xero account. Okay. Now we saw the reports we had to run to get access to what your tech spend is, the P&L and the account transactions report. But in AppVentory, if I just go to my dashboard, I can see my total spend year to date here without even running a report. I just have to log in. With Xero, I've got to log in and run a report and set my parameters, but that kind of data is immediately served up to you in AppVentory. So that's my total app spend year to date, and I can also see last year's spend, the last 12 months spend, and the expected year-on-year change. Okay, so you'd have to run a few different reports in your accounting system to get those figures. Additionally, we've also got a report coming up. If I just click into my test mode, please do take this report with a pinch of salt, because this is the very first beta version I'm showing you. What we're working on in the background is making this more advanced, more detailed, and even prettier. But just to give you a bit of insight as to the data that comes up on this report here. You'll again get that kind of app spend, the app spend change, any potential savings, how you're doing against your budget, and any upcoming renewals. So immediately you've got a hell of a lot more context relating to what the app spend is and what it might be in the future. But we'll get to the forecasting shortly. This is just how we're identifying our app spend. It is served to you on your dashboard in AppVentory and at the click of a button in these reports. The next thing to talk about is categorizing that tech spend, or segmenting it, being able to do some analytics on what I said before, where that spend is coming from. Now, most businesses, at least that I speak with, aren't actually allocating a budget to tech spend, at least not very formally. And if they are allocating a budget for it, most often that spend budget is just allocated to the nominal code in the accounting ledger. So in the Xero instance we were looking at, they'd set a budget for that subscriptions ledger. And this is just a really basic way to track spend against a budget. It doesn't really provide any true insights beyond what the total tech spend is for the business. So if we were looking at categorizing tech spend, the ways in which we might do that is by looking at spend by department, or maybe even spend by app type. Okay, let's look how we might achieve this with Xero. So of course, if you've used Xero, you know that it's not typically that kind of functionality isn't built in. Now, you might be able to achieve this kind of tracking through Xero's tracking categories, or by having even more nominal accounts. So lots of different software ledgers for different departments, or maybe even regions. It really depends on what you're wanting to track. Now, the issue with that is the person acquiring the software for the business and the person reviewing the business case for the software and implementing it and paying the bills usually is not the person that is doing the bookkeeping for those transactions. So let's say that your IT manager acquires a piece of software for your sales department. When that transaction comes through in Xero, the bank feed, for example, and it needs to be reconciled, there then is a bit of an issue in that the bookkeeper may code that transaction incorrectly, or you have to introduce a manual process where they have to go and ask the question of where this transaction needs to be coded through to. So accounting systems generally just are not fit for the purpose of that in-depth kind of tech spend tracking and analysis. I mean, what you could do, so this account transactions report I've got in Xero, you could export this. I'm a Google user. And if I'm wanting to categorize it by department and by type of app, then I could do that manually if I maybe just remove these data sets in here. This might be a way in which you would start to segment this spend. And bear in mind, again, you're probably going to have a lot more than 3 transactions year to date. So we're going department, we're going to go app type. Okay, so for this spend, let's say I am the bookkeeper and I'm sitting here with my IT manager. My IT manager might tell me that that piece of software was for the sales department. That piece of software is for the marketing department. That's the credit for the same piece of software, so it's the marketing department. Okay, what app type is it? So they may also tell me that this app type is a quoting system, and the following are CRM systems. Okay. Then you've got the ability to start filtering these columns and totaling them up and running some formulas to see the total spend by department, the total spend by app type, or the total spend by app type by department, if you wanted to get really nice and detailed with it. So it is possible to do these kinds of analysis with spreadsheets, but of course, that's going to be a manual process, and it's typically going to require a little bit of collaboration between whoever is in the finance role and whoever is in the kind of IT management role. So the alternative to this in AppVentory, if I pull that up just here, I'm going to take you through a couple of different things that you would set up to make this easy. So the first thing I mentioned at the beginning was your integrations. So let's say we've got your accounting system integrated. If we're integrating your identity provider, your Google, your Microsoft, then we're going to pull through your departments from there. And I'll show you what that looks like. So these would be the departments that you have set up in your Microsoft, Google, Okta, or other workspace. Okay, so you review that before connecting with AppVentory. And within those individual departments are users as well. So what AppVentory will do is recognize your transactions from your accounting software and that the apps they belong to, and then reconcile that against your departments and the users and the apps that the users are accessing. So you'll be able to start seeing spend by department and spend even by user. Okay, before I hop into the department detail, let me first show you if we're categorizing what you would do first of all. So when you connect to your accounting system, it will pull through all of your transactions like so. And AppVentory will automatically associate this transaction here with an app in the background. So this is essentially your invoice description, the invoice date, and the amount on the invoice. And AppVentory has created a mapping for you there. So you will come in here and review those mappings. And if there's anything unmapped, you'll want to either delete them off. We don't really want a gym membership in here, or allocate it to an app that exists. Okay, so that's how we're then categorizing our spend against actual applications. Then we're coming into the organization and departments area. Okay, so this is where we start to kind of create a bit of a budget for tech spend. Okay, so in here you can see when you set up AppVentory, you have an annual apps budget that you've set, and based on what you input for each department, you'll have a department's budget. So you can see if the department's budget is the same as the business budget, or if it's less, or if it's over, you might need to have a play around with the numbers in here. So these departments, as I say, have come through from your identity provider. You can add additional departments if you wish. We can see what the last 12 months spend was to help us build a budget for it that is actually achievable. And then we can see how the departments are performing against that budget. So before we get to see how the actual spend and the percentage of total budget used, we need to assign departments to apps. So if I go to my apps page in AppVentory, here I can see every app that my business uses, the total spend for the last 12 months, last year, year to date, who the app owner is. So I can categorize, who is responsible for paying for the app or renewing the app. And then I can assign the department that the app spend belongs to. Now, the cool thing in here is that I can actually split the spend between multiple or all departments if I wish. So I can either split that spend equally based on the head count, so it kind of pro-ratas that spend based on how many people are accessing it from each department, or set a custom split of that cost between departments. Now I'd select my departments in here and update it. So that's how we get the actual app spend for each of those departments. Okay, and then if I hop back into my dashboard, I've already shown you how we get the kind of total business app spend from here. But if I scroll down, this is when we can start to see spend by app owner. So if these are budget holders in the business, we can see who's getting a little bit unreasonable with their budget. We can see how many apps that they own, the cost of the apps allocated to their name, and what percentage of the total business cost is associated with this individual. And then I can see the app usage by department in detail as well. So I can see all my departments, how many apps are assigned to each department, what those apps are, the total year-to-date cost, and again, the total cost against the whole business's app spend. So this is how we started from kind of getting the total business app spend into kind of categorizing that into information that's a little bit more contextual and gives us the ability to ask questions and make decisions and know basically where to start with making things a little bit more leaner, a little bit more cost effective. All right, so that we've done identifying and we've done categorizing tech spend. The final one is forecasting your tech spend. Now, I'm not even going to bother going into zero for this one because it's just not possible. Now, I know that there are reporting apps that integrate with Zero for forecasting, things like Sift and Fathom, but really they're purpose-built for overall kind of business finances, and they just don't have the right data feeding into them when it relates to usage as well as spend. So in terms of forecasting your software spend in AppVentory, there's a couple different areas for us to look at. So I'm going to go back to this dashboard again, because you would have seen there's an app cost forecast figure here. So this widget just projects all of your future app-related expenses, and this is based on your historical spending data. So it takes into account the last 15 months spend, which helps identify kind of what your patterns are over every month, over every 6 months, 12 months, and beyond. And we use a growth rate formula to project what those future costs would look like for the next 6 months. So every time you log into this dashboard, that forecasted figure will be updated dynamically every single time. Now, in AppVentory, if you remove an app that you're no longer using, you can come in here and you can, you can delete an app from here. Now, if you delete or remove an app, they're no longer included in your forecasted spend. They will continue to be included in your historical spend, if historical spend exists, but they will no longer be included in your forecasted spend. So you'll see what impact has been made on that forecast for an app that you have decided to no longer use. Additionally, with forecasting, we've got kind of year-on-year spend. Again, this gives you a little bit more insight as to the changes that are expected. And then we also have the ability to view upcoming renewals. Now, if I go back, I just think I might have a bit more data in my trial account. I do. So I can see here for my next 6 months what renewals are coming up. So I can see I've got an awful lot coming up in November. So I might want to go and have conversations with all of these vendors to either negotiate a better package or perhaps remove a subscription if I no longer need it. And once I do that, I delete the app from AppVentory and the expected cost is removed from the forecast. So the upcoming renewals just gives you a little bit of a head start on refining, deleting, no longer renewing systems that you might not want to use anymore to help your forecasted figures look a little bit more how you want them to look. And if I go to my apps, I can show a summary in here again. So my app spend last 12 months, my app spend forecast, and then my actual app spend per employee. So this is just your total spend divided by your head count as well. And again, with the forecast, when you are connected to an accounting system in AppVentory, your spend overview, where your transactions come in from your ledger, is updated all the time. So if you acquire a new piece of software, you'll just want to make sure that you're coming in here to check that the invoice has been mapped against an app that exists and it's not in the unmapped spend tab, so that this invoice and the cost of this software feeds through into your forecast. Okay, so that is it. Identifying, categorizing, and forecasting software in AppVentory. We've looked at connecting with your accounting software or your accounting transactions and your identity providers. The data that is easily accessible on that dashboard is served up to you. That data comes from your accounting system, but it's just given to you in a way that provides much more context. We've got the financial review report, which I showed you, and its very basic version right now, which will be launched in its entirety in January. In terms of categorizing your spend, we're looking at mapping your transactions to actual applications, creating budgets and assigning spend and budgets to your departments. We've also looked at categorizing apps by app type and looking at spend by app type as well. So we can see if there are particular areas that we're spending too much money on. And then in forecasting, we've got those figures built into AppVentory as well. You've got the 12-month forecast. We've seen the year-on-year spend analysis and projections, the ability to review renewals, to get ahead of that forecasted spend, and staying on top of unmapped spend as well to ensure that those figures presented are accurate at all times. So I hope that has been helpful in kind of demonstrating how you can stay on top of your spend in AppVentory versus ways in which you might be able to achieve that without a software like AppVentory. So before I end the meeting, if you have any questions, please pop those into the chat box below. Otherwise, there will be an email being sent with a copy of this video recording, so you can watch it back, share with anyone within your business. And my email address will also be in that email. So if you have any questions, if you would like a full end-to-end demo, then obviously you can get in touch with me directly, and I'd be happy to help there. So otherwise, that's all from me. Please feel free to stay on again if you have any questions to pop into the chat box. And if not, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a really great afternoon.